Hello, everybody. How's it going? It's Joe. We've made it to another Wednesday, which of course means two things here. Number one, it's another hump day, and number two, it's time once again to take a look and do our power rankings episode. So obviously, hump day has been around for a couple of years. I want to say Geico made that commercial famous. And people, of course, referring to it long before then as well. But we're trying to start a new tradition here on Wednesday on the Lions Grid, and that's just taking a look at these NFL power rankings. So without further ado, Joe, I think we'll save our personal top five here for a moment. We'll start with the media sources we look at for their power rankings. Of course, for the purposes of this video, we look at ESPN, NFL.com, CBS Sports, Bleacher Report, and USA Today, and we will take a look here at their top five teams. So coming up on the screen, you can see the rankings for all five of those sources. The Patriots and the Chiefs are the consensus number 1 and 2 rated teams for all five sources. This is the first week they've been, I want to say this is the first week they've been all consensus there with those two teams as number 1 and 2. You can see it almost extended to the third rated team, the Saints, the third ranked team for many of the sources there. San Francisco for CBS Sports being the sort of outlier there for the third ranked team. In the fourth spot, a lot of people have the Dallas Cowboys, and kind of a surprise there, the only source that has the Lions listed in their top five, Joe. USA Today has them listed there as 4. You can also see NFL.com bringing the Bears into their top 5 with their 5th overall rated team. ESPN bringing in the Rams. The Bleacher Report agreeing on the Packers as with USA Today as their 5th rated team. And then San Francisco, of course, the outlier there for CBS Sports, Joe. So, power rankings isn't necessarily an exact science. I think a lot of it is kind of, your opinion on the teams, watching the games, kind of how you feel about them. Most people seem to be locked in with the Chiefs and the Patriots, the Patriots being number 1, the Chiefs being the number 2 team. But then after that, Joe, it certainly seems like there's some fluctuation this week, which isn't surprising considering a lot of the teams that were up there in the top 5 last week struggled this past weekend.
Yeah, surprising to see Detroit reach the top 5. Chicago, I didn't think would be in there. And no love for the Rams. Most teams most rankings have the Dallas Cowboys and the, Green Bay Packers in there. And, the Rams just are kind of getting overlooked right now. And just a little bit of different preferences for these rankers. I think that Kansas City, in my eyes, should have dropped. Like Mahomes was contained. They got lucky in that game. To me, Detroit's a good team, but they're going to have to play better to win the North. I think that Kansas City played the best game they could have played against Detroit, and they only came away with a 4-point victory. I think Detroit played not that great of a game. Good throwing the ball, good running the ball, but still turnovers plagued them. So I think that Detroit ranking at number 4 by USA Today is generous. I wouldn't put them in the top 5 right now at a 2-1-1. But definitely, they say Kansas City is number 2. Even New England won by 10 points, I think, against Buffalo. And we tend to think of Buffalo as having an easy schedule early on. So even New England didn't put up too many points. So it's just going to show that these powerhouses, number 1, number 2, New England, Kansas City, they can be beaten. Dallas can be beaten by New Orleans. New Orleans has their backup quarterback in, and we're finding out that the team can play football without Drew Brees. All the hype about the best quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, Drew Brees. And now we got a team playing football in New Orleans. So when he comes back, hopefully it gives them a boost, and they could potentially be a number 1 power ranking team. But yeah, definitely a switch up from last week. Just a few different opinions, and I know mine are kind of the same, kind of different. I don't really really see too much wrong with what I see in these rankings that they displayed.
Yeah, well, let's take a look here and throw up your top five here so we can talk about them and how they compare there. Of course, you still have the Patriots as your number one. You bumped the Saints up to your number two rated team. Packers holding in there at number three. The Chiefs bumping down to the number four rated team, and then you're closing out your top five with the Rams there, Joe. So, um, all of these teams, taking a look at the media rankings, all of those teams were featured there. So there's not like that you have a real outlier in place, in your top five there. But, I know you sort of talked about your feelings about the Chiefs and why they moved down. And of course, to your point, even the Patriots did struggle with the Bills. They did only win by 6 points. The final score there was 16-10. So, it was a close game for them as well. So, certainly, I think to your point, power rankings are definitely not a metric that is indicative of, just because you're a higher rated team in the power rankings, uh, you know, yes, it may correspond with you having a better chance of winning the game, but as we found out this past weekend, just because you're higher rated in the power rankings, doesn't guarantee that you're going to come out victorious on Sunday. So, it's almost similar to the college football rankings, right? Where in that case, any given Saturday, in this case, any given Sunday, teams have a chance, and that's why they play the games. But certainly some fluctuation there. So yeah, I know you mentioned we'll toss your rankings back up here again, just because it has who each team is playing. And one thing interesting to note, of course, you don't have Dallas up there, but the Packers will be playing at Dallas. So that is going to be a very interesting game. Another team that wasn't featured in everyone's top five, but usually as I was putting everything together, I saw in their top 10 was Seattle, who you can see that the Rams are playing this week. So, even though those two, the Cowboys and the Seahawks aren't in your top five, two of your teams that are in the top five are going to be playing teams that other people have rated towards the top of the league. Both of those teams, of course, 3-1 as well as the Packers and the Rams. So this Sunday is going to be very interesting to see how some of these games shake out, Joe, because, outside of really the Patriots at Washington, which I think is a pretty slam dunk win for the Patriots. A lot of these other top teams are going to be squaring off with each other here in Week 5.
Yeah, you see the first two teams ranked right there, New Orleans and New England, and it looks like they have pretty easy go at it. And definitely the big game between the Packers and Cowboys. That's going to decide who takes over a top five ranking in my book. So, 4-5 Rams. Jared Goff. I've been dogging him, saying he's not playing too good. I mean, granted, his last game wasn't that good, but the Rams put up more offense. So, with a week 3 loss, week 4 win against a good opponent, I was going to include them into my top five, but just have to see how the season unravels with these teams. The biggest threat right now is New Orleans, and my pick about the Eagles making it to the Super Bowl is looking foolish. I should have went with the Saints and the Patriots, but the Eagles could get a string of good luck again in the playoffs. But my sleeper pick, as you would say, is the Eagles, and that's not shown to be too good, as nobody's got them in their top five anymore.
Yeah, I did see some people having them bounce up back into their top 10. So, there's still some encouraging signs. Obviously, they beat the Packers last week, so it wasn't necessarily a pretty win, but their passing game sort of struggled there, but they definitely ran the ball really well against the Packers. So, a lot of these teams, I think outside of the Jets and the 49ers, who both had a bye last week, everybody else is through their first quarter of the season. Have already played 4 games. So, there's still 3 full quarters of football left to go, and it'll be interesting to see how everything shakes out, because the nice thing with how the scheduling works out is a lot of these top teams will be squaring off against one another in the regular season, so we sort of get to have that one-to-one matchup of how the teams stack up, because if they weren't playing each other, we'd sort of just have to theory craft everything. We get to see some of this happen out on the field, so it makes for a very exciting regular season when you get to see so many of these top teams playing one another, and of course that starts tomorrow night with the Rams taking on the Seahawks in Seattle. So 2 3-1 teams should be. This is, I think, last week, of course, we had the Eagles and the Packers squaring off. This is another Thursday night football matchup that's 2 weeks in a row of pretty excellent football there.
Yeah, we're fairly early on in the season, and we haven't seen a lot of losses by some of these good teams, because you want to get off to a good start. You want to get a quick win, and maybe one loss. But, just having a winning record after the first quarter puts teams in position for what they can expect for the season. And, as these teams play one another, as they continue on the season, we're going to get a greater scope or a greater projection of our grid of, how these teams are doing in the NFL, where the lines stack up, and just exactly how the NFL is shaping up this season. Is definitely going to change perspective. So fun to watch you come this far. I know already that we've looked at the power rankings, and the only teams that have really stayed in there is Kansas City, New England, and I know either you or I or the rankings have had the Rams in there. Other than that, 2 positions in the power rankings have been up and down. So we are going with the 2 Super Bowl people from last year, the team that got cheated out of the Super Bowl from last year, and everybody else is a toss-up.
Yeah, and certainly taking a look here at my rankings, to your point, Joe, they stayed pretty consistent. Most of these teams have been in my top 5 at some point this season. Really, with the Saints getting that win over the Cowboys, I did bump them into my top 5, move them into the 3rd place that the Cowboys used to hold. And then the team that's sort of the odd man out with the Saints sliding into my top 5 is the Rams, who get bumped down they're still in my top 10, but just getting bumped out because of the Saints taking care of business against the Cowboys there. So, and yeah, to your point, it has seemed rather consistent in the fact that the Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs have sort of been really consistent, and then all the other teams we've talked about outside of the 49ers and the Lions have been pretty, some teams might have not been there every week so far through 5 weeks, but all the other teams have sort of hopped in and out of that top 5 rankings, both yours and mine's, and what we're seeing at the national level as well. So to round out today's episode, let's go ahead and take a look. Obviously, we've already seen how the Detroit Lions are ranked by USA Today. You can see there they are 4 again. You can see where the other media platforms we're looking at have them ranked. ESPN has them as 15th, which is 2 down from where they were the previous week. NFL.com's got them the 13th best team. CBS Sports 12th. Bleacher Report has them as 16th, which was actually 1 up from where they were the previous week. At the end of the day, you add those all up, divide them by 5, the average rank turns out to be 10th. And the average change this week is a +1, helped out by that big +7 jump that the Lions got from from USA Today. So Joe, we've talked about it. Certainly, the way they played against the Chiefs seems to be getting the national coverage to give them a little bit more respect. Obviously, some even though they played a tough game against Kansas City, there were a couple of sources there, ESPN, that
don't give any ESPN. Don't worry about it. Don't give any credit to Detroit. Fox, you can stay out of it too. CBS, we drop in CBS rankings too. It's like, whatever. You guys don't know football.
Yeah, it's interesting that because I know there have been plenty of people on the ESPN network who were saying, oh yeah, the way they played against the Chiefs certainly matters, and then they go to the power rankings, they're like, well, it matters, but then they're also down 2 in the power rankings. So,
I mean, they hired Dan Orlowski to analyze football games. The guy was a terrible quarterback. I don't understand.
yeah, his most memorable moment as a Lion running out of the back of the end zone. So
That's his career play. I've never seen him do anything other.
So it's certainly interesting there, but at least overall, if you take that aggregate view, it's good to see that at least 3 of the 5 sources have the Lions moving up. And Joe, we've been talking about it all week. Obviously, the Lions are on a bye week here in week 5, so it's going to be sort of a quiet week in terms of that. But hopefully, they'll be able to take this bye week, get healthy, and then continue that momentum as they take on the Packers on Monday Night Football in week 6. Because, if the Packers get a win here against Dallas, certainly that's going to have the Packers up there pretty high in the power rankings. And if the Lions can then go into Lambeau and get the win against the Packers, at that point in time, not only did they play a tough game against the Chiefs, but they've also shown that they can beat the Packers. I think at that point in time, even ESPN will have to come around and start giving the Lions the credit they're due, assuming that everything goes according to plan in week 6.
I don't buy it. ESPN, every coverage of sports in the NFL, whether it be Fox, CBS, or ESPN, you get these guys on there that just have a bias. That's why these fans in Detroit say it's Detroit versus everybody, because there is not a national outlet that enjoys Detroit sports. They don't like to see Detroit do good. They don't like to see, an upset from Detroit. They in fact dislike seeing Detroit succeed. So they're always going to dog them, get the attention of the public to dog them. That's why my favorite time of a football season is there's 2 times. Number 1 is Thanksgiving. When we go on national television on Thanksgiving and we win a football game, that really makes it better for me as a fan of the Lions and representing the Lions in front of the country. When we won in London years ago against Atlanta, that was enjoyable football. That was like, representing Detroit the correct way across the sea. We got a chance coming up here on Monday Night Football against Green Bay to play for the division lead. Now, it's going to be a good football game. Typically, what we've seen on Monday night is a bunch of sleepers. Last week we had Bengals and Steelers. Both the teams are not going anywhere this season. And, what was the other one? Jets and Browns. These Monday Night Football games were really poorly planned by ESPN. So, they finally get one right in week 6. So we'll just have to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, and of course here in week 5, the Monday Night Football game is going to be the Browns and the 49ers, which it's hard to say. The Browns, if we get the same Browns that played against the Ravens last week, where they looked pretty good, and we get the good 3-0 49ers, that could be an interesting Monday Night Football game. But certainly that week 6 matchup between, two NFC North rivals, the Lions going into Lambeau, with the uncertainty about what we're going to get this Monday night, looks like the best one so far here in the early part of the season, those Lions and Packers squaring off. So certainly excited for that. Of course, it's unfortunately with the bye week, it's still a week away, but, it's all good. It gives us time to rest, reflect, and take a look at the rest of the NFL. And, as we pointed out yesterday during our Kings of the North episode, the other interesting thing is that this week, the rest of the NFC North teams are all playing teams that the Lions are going to play here in upcoming weeks. So even though the Lions aren't in action, resting up with the bye, still some interesting games to keep an eye on, because not only are we going to have to play the Bears, the Vikings, and the Packers twice, but we have to play each team they're playing. So no Lions football this weekend, but certainly I think if you are a fan of Lions football, some games worth at least checking out, because we're going to be seeing all these teams here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, when you look at the Lions' remaining schedule, 6 of their remaining opponents are going to be NFC North teams. So you say they got 4 games played, 6 is going to be NFC North. That's 10 games. You really only have 6 games against the NFC North and 6 games against other opponents. I think you might have 2, maybe AFC teams left and 4 other NFC teams. But yeah, really half and half of the schedule now is just going to be fighting in the NFC North.
Yeah, 6 games, that puts it at just over a quarter and a half of the season is just going to be against the NFC North rivals. So we've talked about it all preseason. We've talked about it here in the beginning of the season. Those are really going to be the games where the Lions' playoff hopes are really going to be defined. And the fact that they are going up against, obviously the Packers are in a lot of the top 5 projections. The Bears creeping in there for CBS Sports. Or I think that was NFL.com that had him in there. We'll double check. We'll throw it up here. Yeah, it was the Bears that had him up there. NFL.com that had the Bears up there. It's clear that the caliber of opponents we're going to be playing inside of those NFC North, those 6 games, they're up there. So it's going to be really exciting, I think, to see how these things shake out, because it's not just a matter of them. It's not going to be like the Patriots, who have that stranglehold over the AFC East and they just sort of know they're going to get those wins. These are going to be some tough fought games between teams with a lot of rivalries, a lot of history. It makes for very exciting football here for the 2019 season. And certainly excited because it looks like, at least, what we've seen so far from the Lions, that they're going to be up for the challenge. So, we've talked about the importance of them getting healthy this bye week and coming out strong against the Packers. So I'm excited to see what they can do, because so far, I really can't critique too much what they've done. I'm pretty happy with the outcomes of the game, and sitting at 2-1-1 is certainly a much better start than I think a lot of people gave us at the heading into the season. Certainly going to make the rest of this ride pretty interesting as we finish out these last 3 quarters of the season.
It's going to be fun to watch Detroit football this year. It's been fun so far. I think it's going to continue to be fun. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait and let this week go on the bye and, not have any Detroit Lions football. And I guess we're going to have to try to enjoy football on Sunday without the Lions playing. But, it should be some good games with these teams in the top 5, and we'll have to watch how it unfolds, the NFL without the Lions playing this week, and, when they come back, where things stack up then.
Yeah, it'll be certainly interesting to see, especially what happens with the USA Today ratings. With them having us as the 4th-ranked team, obviously not going to be in action this week, so we'll have to see if maybe another team's momentum is enough to swing them out of that top 5 spot, or if the Lions stay there through the bye. Certainly something interesting to see what happens in week 6 once those power rankings get released. But unfortunately, to your point, Joe, we got a lot of waiting on our hands, but sooner rather than later, things will be heating up here for the Lions. So certainly excited about that. And yeah, that is going to do it for our episode here today, taking a look at the NFL Power Rankings. If you did enjoy the show, please do help the channel grow. Hit that like button on the video. Make sure, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. That's really the best way you can help support us. We have a goal of reaching 100 subscribers so we can unlock a custom URL for the YouTube channel. We're making good progress there, but certainly if you haven't done so, please consider doing it. Like I said, it really helps us out, and it means a lot to both Joe and I. So appreciate everyone who tunes into the videos, and everybody who hits that like button and it is a subscriber. And we will be back again we'll be back again tomorrow with a video taking a look at the injury news and the roster moves updates. Certainly some NFL news this week that we'll just sort of keep you updated on. And then, of course, we'll have most of the regular episodes this week as well, Joe. Friday, we'll do our fantasy football focus. Saturday, we'll still do our NFL pick'em and games of the week. But, of course, with no Lions playing Sunday, there's no Lions pregame or postgame video. So A little bit different schedule for this week with the bye week, but most of those same episodes we do in the week still be firing away with those. So be sure to come back for those if you've enjoyed what you've seen here today. All right, until tomorrow's video, I'm Kevin Marheine. He's Joe Wilmot. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.